All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming in and joining us today. We are going to go ahead and get started. This is the Madison area Power BI user group or Fabric user group. Why don't you go ahead and share my screen? We'll just go ahead and get going on this. If you do want to follow along, there's a link on the screen. The link is not in the description of the video, but that is my fault. I think you can find this out. It's out on my GitHub repo, or you can follow along after the fact. All right. But the Madison Power BI or Fabric user group, we meet monthly to talk about all things Fabric, Power BI, data, and anything in between. This is live streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. So for those of you joining us there, thank you. And for those of you joining us in person, so much the better. We get pizza and beer, so that's good to go. All right, today we're going to be just jumping in. We got a little bit of welcome. We're going to be doing some new things, some upcoming events, and then we're going to jump into the presentation. So myself, Scott, Leonard, we're your hosts this evening. If there's anything you need, please hit us up. We're happy to help out. We also have Daniel Woods here, who is signing up for people who are in the room and need access to Wi-Fi. So please feel free to join us there. There is a whole bunch of new stuff that's coming out. If you didn't see my live stream from last week, Miguel Myers was on the live stream, and he broke and showed us three new visuals in Power BI that really transforms the way we're going to be visualizing, working with data. And he laid out the framework for like a whole bunch of new stuff that's coming up on the visual side. His entire team their entire focus is on modernizing the visuals that are out there. And he's just got some incredible things that's out. And I will also say that you might not be able to see this online, but oh no, I lost it in just a minute. He did just release a blog that goes into great detail and depth that outlines all the new capabilities that are going on in the visuals. So do check that out. Microsoft has released a Fabric release plan, so we've got good line of sight into all the features and functionalities that they're going to be coming out with over the next 2 years. Do be aware that changes. Like they'll pull things forward, things will get pushed off. The Power BI and Fabric group is, well, frankly, they use an agile-based development process where they work off of feedback from the community. So if you have issues or items that you want worked on, heading over to ideas.fabric.microsoft.com, I think is what the link is, and submit your ideas, vote up ideas or things you want to have. They respond to it very well. In fact, that's what switched me over from Tableau to Power BI was about 12, 14 years ago. I had an issue when I was looking at a beta of Power BI, and I posted on a blog, gee, wouldn't it be great if we could sort? And a product manager called me that afternoon and said, what do you mean by sort? Could you describe what sort looks like? And I did, and a week later it was in the product, and it's still there to this day. So they're very, very responsive to that. And then the other big thing that's coming out is Microsoft Ignite. That is going on. That kicks off tomorrow. There's a whole mess of massive announcements. Do join that. Satya's keynote presentation, I think it's at 11 Central. Anyone? Is that it? 11 Central is going to knock your socks off. There's so many things that are coming out in data and AI and ChatGPT and M365 Copilot is unbelievable. Do make sure that you join in to check that out. Honestly, if your companies have not already agreed to purchase M365 Copilot, they need to be doing that like tomorrow afternoon. It is a game changer in how we're going to be interacting with our data. So much so that Amazon spent $1 billion on Microsoft licensing, Office licensing, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, leaving Google Docs, leaving their other stuff because they're like, oh crap, we got to get on board with that. So if you don't know what M365 Copilot is, make sure your IT team members do, because that's going to be crazy. We also do have a Microsoft Data and AI conference that is in March 26th through the 28th. Honestly, this is going to be a huge conference all around data, all around the whole product team is going to be out there, and the Fabric team. Anyone who works inside of data is going to be out there. There are some workshops on the 24th and 25th and on the 29th. So if you want to go for the entire week, you can go for the entire week. You can get like additional trainings, additional stuff. I know that the pre-registration ends for the conference on November 17th. Right now it's $1,700 or $1,699. If you wait till after that, I think it goes up to $2,000. After that, it goes up. I would expect that this one is going to sell out. So get your requests into your management. Tell them how much you need to be there. This is a big one. All right. And then next month is going to be our final end of the year Power BI user or Fabric user group meeting. So we're not really having speakers. We're having a communal conversation. We got a fun game we're going to be doing around data stories and data adventures that we've all been on. So we're going to be doing an event. We think we'll be doing it here, or else there's a few adult beverage dispensaries around here that we might be moving the location of to just have a festive holiday season. Okay. Now, I do also want to announce, this is the first time I think anyone's announcing this. Baker Tilly will be hosting Fabric Analyst in a Day. This is going to be in Q2 or Q1 and Q2. Look for these announcements and details on the dates in Madison and Milwaukee. We're going to be having these. These are going to be free trainings. So it will be first come, first serve. You sign up for these, you'll be the first ones out with it. So just do be aware, kind of keep an eye on our, make sure you're following me on LinkedIn and on X and watch our pages. Because and I believe it'll actually pop up because there's a process. You sign up for X in a day, or and you'll get a notification in your window, so everyone will get notifications. So be aware they sign up fast. So if you're interested and you can do that, make sure you and your team come as soon as you can on that. Okay. So that's my little preview. Nobody knows about this. Congratulations. Well, all new. All right. If you're an administrator, we do host and run a Fabric Admin Council. Our next meeting is on Thursday. It's at Thursday at 2. We're going to be getting together. We're going to be going over all the stuff that was released and announced at Ignite. We're going to be talking about from an administrative perspective, what does it mean? What are we going to have to do to manage all of these new things and new features that come out? So it should be a good conversation. Last time there was a big announcement. I think we ran long. It wasn't just an hour because there's a lot to talk about. But hopefully, if we're a non-chatty group, we will, and we need to pivot to another session conversation. We're going to be talking about scaling strategies with Fabric capacities, what companies are talking about doing when it comes to how they're going to manage Fabric capacities. When do you scale up? When do you scale out? How do you onboard teams? That type of a thing. So, and because this is an intro to Fabric presentation, nobody knows what the heck I'm talking about. So we'll just keep moving here. All right. I do host Fabric Fridays with Kevin Arnold. So, hey, Kevin, if you're online, it's every Friday at 7:30 to 8:30. We go over a new topic each week. We cover something usually pretty interesting. This week is going to be a rundown and examples of what's going on from Ignite. We're going to be going over what does it mean? You'll also see, and in fact, you might see as we do our demo tonight, you might see some of the pre-release or NDA content start to get leaked out because Microsoft has already started to push out the changes that are going on that they're going to be announcing. So me and you will discover it together if we find some of those things. So be aware that you might see it, but we'll be going over that and running through those on Friday. And then on Wednesday, November 20th, Jay is on the Microsoft product team. He is a senior product engineer. He's got a new feature that's going to be rolling out called Visual Calcs. Basically allows users to create a calculation on top of a visual. right? So you've got this nice visual, it looks good, but you want to do something different with the numbers. You don't want to go back into the model. You don't want to go and do this other stuff. You don't want to go to your data engineers. You just want to do some weird math or some weird logic with the data that's on the screen. Visual Calcs will allow you to do that. Think of it like Excel formulas on, well, steroids isn't quite right, but like, I don't know, like on protein powder or something like that, right? Like, but it's a great new functionality that Jake's gonna be rolling out, and you're gonna start to be able to enable your users who are on the consume side to be able to do more things with these calculations. Okay. But let's get into it. My name's Chris Wagner. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm also Director of Data Solutions at Baker Tilly. I've been working in the data space for over 2 decades. Been MVP for 4 years now. Been working in the Microsoft stack and the Power BI stack for 14 or 15 years. I was very lucky. I think I'm now at 12 years on the Power BI, or 12 or 13 years on the Power BI. So I've been able to be with them on the journey for this entire time. All right. But today we're going to be getting into the introduction to Microsoft Fabric. So thanks for hanging in there for this introduction. Any questions before we dive in? No? All right, good deal. All right, we're going to flip over to my deck. Not it. Okay. Here we go. All right. As I said, if you want to follow along, you can download that. There's some a code repo and data repo that's out on GitHub. You can follow along. But we're going to jump right into it. Now, this is an introduction to Microsoft Fabric, kind of presuming that a lot of people don't know what Fabric is, okay? And that is perfectly fine. Heck, I didn't know it was called Microsoft Fabric until they told me what the name was. So we'll jump through that really quick. Microsoft and I think one of the biggest challenges a lot of people are dealing with is data's all over. It's part of the work that we do. It's part of the work that we need to like if you're in data, it's your entire job. But anyone in business is out, they're still using data. We've got people who need to access data, break that, get through silos, mash up HR data, sales data. They really need to be able to leverage that from all across the organization, but they really struggle with it, right? The classical, like, hey, load it all into the data warehouse, and then, we'll have a curated team come through and do all this work, is really breaking down. It's creating a lot of bottlenecks, and it's really causing a slowdown when it comes to accessing and consuming data. And frankly, that starts to get to the point where we start to really lose the value of our data platforms. Right? Gartner calls out 75% of organizations by 2024. That means in how many days we got? 48 days. 75% of organizations are going to have a data and analytics center of excellence. So if you don't have a data analytics center of excellence inside your organizations, I've got great news. Start one. You can do it yourself. There's nothing to saying that it has to come from the CDO or the CDAO. If you want to start using data better, start it. Meet at lunches. All right. Now, people are running into all the same questions, right? How do I unify data from across my company, right? How do I manage security? I don't want my data leaking. I want to move faster, right? Like, I can't wait for a project to kick off 18 months from now. I need to be able to respond to the needs that I have now. And then how do I ensure that the insights my business users are getting are the right insights? I'll often tell you the story. The first report I can remember creating. I got a spec file, said get these fields, from all this stuff, put these limits on, send these over to this regional manager or whatever. Okay, spent a few hours, put it together, shipped it off, really happy. Followed up with that manager 3 weeks later, said, hey, how'd it go? He goes, great, we fired everyone on that report. That's not what I was hoping you were going to say. We didn't really want to fire everyone on that report, right? Because they didn't necessarily have the right controls in there. I didn't ask the right questions, right? I wasn't getting the right value, right? we need to find ways where we could start to really break that down. We really need to transition away from these old ways of interacting with our data, and we need to take advantage of these integrated cloud-based solutions that allow us to be more flexible, rapidly work inside this space. Know that we could trust that our data is secure, and know that people are getting the right insights from it. All right, this is where Microsoft Fabric comes in. All right, Microsoft Fabric is built upon their industry standard, their enterprise scalable tools that people have been working with for over a decade. And basically, what I like to say is Microsoft's following the same strategy they followed with Office. 25 years ago, they had Word. You could buy Word. You could buy Outlook. You could buy Excel. You could buy PowerPoint. Some people would have one. Some people would have another. But it's a real problem in how companies and how people work together. Microsoft came out with the Office suite. They bundled it all together. And now, are there other vendors when it comes to Office productivity? I mean, Google, I guess, kind of. But really, Microsoft continues to dominate in that space. Microsoft Fabric combines that all together into one unified platform. They bring together those enterprise tools, those enterprise capabilities that are pro code. So we know they're scalable. We know, enterprise engineering and development can work with them, and they put a really nice low code sheen on the front end. So just like how Power BI, broke open the ability for business users to go in and analyze data and gain insights from it, Microsoft Fabric's really going to transform the way companies and allow people in their organizations to not just gain insights, but go get data, to manage data, to be able to do that in a repeatable fashion without having to duplicate a whole bunch of data, knowing that it's secure, knowing that you've got good line of sight into what's going on, so that you can really achieve that democratized insights across all your business users, which is something that we're talking about, right? Why are you don't replay? And this is where Fabric comes in, okay? So Microsoft Fabric, we've got our data integration. This is Data Factory, right? This allows you to bring data together, mash it up, apply business rules, do all those good things, right? Basically your orchestration capabilities. So you can manage your files coming in, manage what happens to them. Data engineering, this brings the engineering capabilities that you would normally reserve for an IT space, and it makes it accessible and easy for people in our business departments to learn and use. So those interns that are coming out of school and have been coming out of school for the last decade, who know Python and have been looking for a place where they can go and they can work and they can operate, you can provide them a Microsoft Fabric environment for them to work in. It's secured, it's scalable. You know that they're not sending information out of your space. You know that that code isn't being trapped on their laptop and lost forever when they disappear on you after those 2.5 months. It's a place that they can really go and work and do some incredible work and produce good results. We've got our Synapse data warehouse. That's a part of the data engineering space. Microsoft really rewrote their data warehouse engine from scratch as part of the Fabric rollout. So if you've used Synapse in the past, did some things really good, really well, and other things maybe not so well. Well, Microsoft knows that, right? They see the tickets, they saw the feedback, so they rewrote the engine from the ground up, bringing you all those capabilities and functionality that you wanted when it came to that dedicated compute, but also with that spin up, spin down capabilities when it comes to costs and performance. They really went above and beyond in that space. Yeah.
So I can see that a lot of this is built around Synapse, right? It's 4 of the 6 pieces. It seems like Synapse is kind of an attempt to compete with Snowflake and Databricks. Do you have a sense, right? So you describe yourself as a former Tableau user who moved over to Power BI.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense as to how you would compare? Well, first of all, is that right? Are those its competitor products? And how would you compare Synapse to those other products in terms of pluses and minuses?
Yeah, so great question. I think Microsoft Fabric does compete with Databricks. It does compete with Snowflake. I think the data warehouse I mean, I don't know how much is official or announced on this, but when they rewrote that, I know that like a lot of the lead engineers they hired away from Snowflake because they said, you know what, let's do this and let's use people who know what they're doing with this. So a lot of the engineers there were from Snowflake, so they did that. So the data warehousing side, definitely it's competing on the Snowflake space. And if you watch MIM on X, if you don't know who MIM is, MIM's a little vocal, but MIM does performance tests all day long. I don't know what exactly MIM does for a living, but he writes and does performance tests on data platforms, and he has already specced out and drawn. He went from Microsoft, you got to become more cost effective, to a week later, oh wow, you're now beating Snowflake, to, hey Snowflake, how are you going to beat Microsoft in cost and performance? And Mim is not shy, so do check him out. I believe him. He publishes all of his results. Technically, it's against the licensing on the Microsoft side, so I don't know why or how he's allowed to continue doing that. But he does, and I think he does it because he puts out all the good and bad, and he does it in an honest way. So the data warehouse definitely competes on the Snowflake front. The Microsoft Lakehouse, and really as we start to get into OneLake, it 100% competes inside the Databricks world, right? So, and we didn't even get into this, but I'm going to jump right into it because I think this conversation leads right into it. The biggest component here that we haven't even talked about is OneLake. OneLake is the universal true storage fabric that data is going to be shared with inside of all of Microsoft and Azure. And people somehow keep making this analogy, and some people don't like it, but actually I think it makes perfect sense. OneLake is for data what OneDrive is for personal documents, right? So in the same way you have a PowerPoint presentation out in OneDrive, and you share that out to 30, 40, 50, however many other people, and everybody works off of that one PowerPoint file. OneLake allows you to have that one copy of your truths that people can access and they could share. And with the new sharing and the new linking or shortcuts, they don't have to recreate it in their environment. So you could create bundles of a bundle of shortcuts. So here is my data assets, right? So here is my customer data shortcut. And it's not just a customer table, but it's the customer table, and it's the relevant facts or additional dimensions that the customer table needs to have with it. It's the row level security that you want people to apply onto the customer table that goes along with it. It's the additional data assets that are all shared through there. And then the row level security and column level security are all defined in OneLake and allowing you to be assured that nobody has access to stuff they shouldn't. Yeah.
So your comparison of OneLake to OneDrive reminds me of like the probably common frustration a lot of people have, where Power BI connects really easily to files in OneDrive. Mm-hmm. Data Factory connects really easily to files in Azure Data Lake. Mm-hmm. But going the other way, right? Connecting Power BI to Data Lake is kind of awkward. Mm-hmm. Connecting Data Factory to OneDrive is kind of awkward. Is that going to become less awkward? Are OneLake and OneDrive going to be in some way related?
Yes, there's a lot of that's being automatically re-engineered, and actually gets into probably the biggest feature on the Power BI side is Christian Wade and the team that owns the tabular engine, which is the powerhouse behind Power BI, rewrote the entire engine so that instead of having to use the proprietary in-memory, what's the name of the files, RMP or something like file type or whatever it is, right? They rewrote it so that it can run directly off of the Delta files that are in OneLake. And they have come up with a proprietary V-sort order. So while the OneLake files are in open Delta source formatting, there's a vsort order that's applied to the data that goes into it, so that the files are as performant inside of Power BI as imported data files are. That takes a big step off of your load process. So in the classic medallion architecture, you'd load to bronze, you do your transformations, apply your business logic into silver, you then model it into gold, and then from gold, you then do a load into Power BI, right? That final hop, if you have a very large model, that can take you an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours to load that target model. If you're talking about a 400 or 500 gig model, it could take a long time. Direct Lake eliminates that need, so you could just point your model at those Direct Lake files, and you don't have to go through additional processing. You don't have to spend additional compute sending it up. You just got that performance in place.
What's the difference between, so Synapse was rewritten as an engine, Power BI tabular models were rewritten as an engine.
Mm-hmm.
Synapse, I understand, is heavily related to the data lake. You're describing the Power BI tabular model as heavily related to the data lake. What's the difference between the two new rewritten engines?
So fantastic question. And there's actually 3 engines I'll call out. One is the Spark and Python engine. That is the true data lake or lakehouse engine. So you can run Python, you can run Scala, you can run all of your true data engineering, data science packages against your Delta files. But for those like classical SQL engineers, and that you want to work and operate on the SQL side, you can do that as well. And there's no additional processing. You just go in through a different experience. And if you want to write SQL, you just go into you put on your SQL hat, you can write SQL. You want to write Python, you put on your Python hat, you write Python. If you want to go do Power BI and create semantic models on top of that, you just put on that hat and you go to town. So same data files, 3 different engines on top that can read from them equally.
Right. So what you described as different is the user interfaces. So besides the user interfaces, when you actually get into the processing engines, do you have a sense to the difference between what is different or what is optimized in those 3 engines? Do you feel like you know?
Yeah, I can't go that deep into those. So apologies. I could talk a little bit about how they changed the tabular engine. I know they rewrote from the ground up the Synapse, and I know that the Python side, the notebooks and the scripting on that side, that is all greenfield development as far as I know on the Microsoft side. I will also say I had this issue that I said to Microsoft on September 17th, 2019. I said, hey, it really sucks that my data science people work over here, my data engineers work over here, and my data analysts work over here. We need to find some way to bring them all together. And we start having a conversation around this. So I know Microsoft has been working on this for a very long time. And they have reorganized their entire data engineering and support teams in support of this. So this isn't a fly-by-night, small little effort. This isn't going to be something that goes away in 3-4 years. Maybe some of these engines on top might go away. Maybe Power BI disappears one day, or data integration, Data Factory disappears, or heck, maybe Python grows old and we move away from Python. I think things like OneLake and some of the domain capabilities and the security that they're integrating into the system will be here for a long time. Right. And fabulous questions, right? Because honestly, this OneLake and the security is huge. This integrated security is going to allow you to tag, identify stuff, prevent it from leaving your ecosystem, track it, trace it, make sure that you're in compliance with all those crazy laws that are coming along. It's really going to be quite amazing, okay? Now, we've been very high level on these things. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, but we do have a viewer from Australia and a viewer from Peru.
Oh, hey, how exciting. We've gone international. We're global. Oh, welcome. All right, let's keep going then. All right, now I stole this slide because I absolutely love this slide when it comes to thinking about and working with data. This was part of the this was like a reference slide in the Power BI enablement deck. They don't even use all that much, but I absolutely love it, so I bring it out. The idea being, though, that everyone inside your company, everyone at the end, from the enterprise down to that individual, need to work and operate with data. Now, you're going to have certain types of controls and governance that you're going to have at that enterprise space with SLAs and access and process and all that stuff. You're going to have really tight controls around that. But individuals are going to need to do some like wonky stuff as they start to explore, think about what's going on with their data. And Fabric, well, Power BI, but now Fabric has been engineered with that in mind, is to be the enabler for the individual, be the enabler for the team, the department, and the enterprise alike, so that people can do what they need to with data. But you've got good line of sight into, is this something that really came from the enterprise? Or is this some crappy thing that like Chris threw together on a Saturday 4 years ago and it's no longer relevant whatsoever, right? You can see that all inside the system. All right, so Microsoft capabilities, we already started to get into this. It is designed around a lake-centric and open source mindset. So everything in the lake is in Delta format. You're going to see stuff that everything that comes in, you might have your bronze landing layer where you've got your CSVs and your JSONs and your XML. But the second you start to process things into the lake, everything goes into the Delta format. All right. The idea is that it becomes one center where people all can work and operate, making governance and security much easier to manage and control from that centralized place, while still allowing people to do what they need to with their data. Yeah.
Sorry for dominating questions. Can you describe the Delta format? What is this format that everybody's going to be centralized
with? The Delta Parquet format.
So Parquet is a file format I'm familiar with, but what is the difference between a regular Parquet file and when you start calling it Delta?
Fantastic. So Parquet files, one of the challenges with Parquet files, and I have not opened a Parquet file to like dig into it in a little while, but I've always thought of it as a heavily formatted CSV, so it's super fast and accessible for people to go in and access it. Now, maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. That's the way I think of it, and it's generally good enough. The challenge with the Parquet file is locking of the file for updates becomes a problem. So if you need to go in to do big updates on that file becomes locked and inaccessible by users while that file is going on. Processing deletes or making changes becomes an issue. So what you end up having is a Parquet file with a bunch of like sub-files with a Delta file on top of it that controls all the changes that are in there. Now, when you go into the Fabric and work with it, you don't need to know all that stuff. You just, unless you want to go from the pro code side. If you want to go on the pro code side, you can go deep and you can go and exploit all the capabilities inside that Delta space or inside the Parquet space. You could go pretty hard in that if you want to. Does that answer your questions?
I think so. So, well, let me clarify. So you're saying that Delta Parquet files enable you to be able to run your engine without being slowed down by having to wait for other processes to finish before you can touch the file. Do they also maintain a kind of history like change data capture or tabular tables do in SQL Server?
Yep. Yeah. It is ACID compliant. You could go through and you can see the whole history on it. In fact, one of the things that you often have to do is you have to optimize those files because there's too much history. There's too many changes. Fabric makes that easy to do for both the pro code and low code developer. I mean, pro code, there's a whole bunch of strategies for how you manage that compression. On the low code side, right click, optimize, choose what cadence you want that optimized on. Yep. All right, let's keep going. Again, the whole idea is to bring people in closer to that source of truth, get people to the data that they need to have without having to replicate it, without having to okay, you've got your data in the warehouse, but now you're going to copy it into your marts, or you're going to send it out. You're going to make copy after copy after copy. With OneLink and shortcuts, you now are able to have that one source of truth that people are able to access and use. You don't have to worry about that massive proliferation of your data. Right. Plus, it then makes it easier for governance and scaling and all that good stuff. Again, the whole point, though, is to make it very agile for people to interact with. I mean, because that people aren't taking stuff and doing things that you don't need to have access to or be concerned about. You can control it all through not Azure AD, Entra ID. Azure AD was renamed to Entra ID. So you control them with all of your classical Azure AD groups, controlling what they have access to, what they're allowed to do, what they're allowed to see, what they're allowed to not see. Just generally make it easier for people to interact with their data. And then it makes it very easy to integrate with all of your service and capabilities. The way I like to think of this is, and this isn't on this slide, but I think someone said this once, and I think this really resonates with me. Think of Fabric like the operating system in which all of the data services at Microsoft run on. OneLake is the storage layer that they exist in, allowing you to have all of your security and compliance defined within Fabric and on the OneLake files, and not have to worry about the myriad of security layers above that necessarily. No, some of that you still have to get into, but it's not as bad as it once was. Yes.
So Azure's been kind of organized increasingly around managed identities
Mm-hmm.
in Active Directory. Power BI have kind of been off to the side, not really been able to effectively use managed identities. Are you saying Power BI is going to have access to managed identities as part of this?
I don't think I can say. I will say Fabric is going to be the place where all things data run at Microsoft. And so that would be your pro code and low code. So if you have a pro code need for something like a managed identity, if it doesn't exist inside of Fabric today, maybe check back tomorrow. I don't know how much more I should go into that. So yes, we're going to see a lot of these capabilities start to blend together inside the space. And one of the things I love the most about Fabric, it does come with that pro code side and that low code side. So if you want to run in VS Code all day long and you're all about scripting stuff out and you're all API driven and commandlets and you're using a what's it called? Microservice driven framework. Totally, you could come in and do all of those things inside of Fabric. But if all of that sounds like gobbledygook and like you don't want to get into that at all, that's just fine. You don't have to get into all of that. You could go from that low code side and you could just get into Fabric and it just works, right? That's why frankly, the demo we're going to show you today is like, I was blown away that I was able to create a lake house and build out reports. And I think I did it all from a SQL database I had. I created it and I was reporting out within 15 minutes. And that was my first pass through there. So you might have to slow me down so that I don't blow past comprehension as I go through it. All right. Now, these are the four big pillars that they're talking about inside of Fabric today. This is not it, right? But these are the big analytics scenarios that they're talking about. Lakehouse, which is hey, I've got a data lake, meaning I store stuff in files, but I want to run Python and notebooks on top of it. I want to do some SQL. I want to do that stuff. I want to have that data warehouse side to it, but I might have unstructured data too that I'm using as well, right? And that's where the lakehouse really comes into effect. Fabric's got that. So that'd be your Databricks that we were talking about. Data warehousing is your, like, hey, this is your classic data warehouse. I want to have all of my stuff loaded in, and I want to have defined schemas, and I want to have my stored procedures, and I want to have my updates and my inserts and deletes, stuff that's more challenging on the lakehouse side of the world. You can do all of that inside of the data warehouse experience. Data science allows your data scientists to come in and do all of the stuff that they're accustomed to and used to. And then it adds in real-time streaming data. So if you're trying to build out, what did they just see? I think I saw they brought in real-time streaming data on airplane flight and collision detection to help bring line of sight to air traffic controllers for understanding like where planes were in the sky, right? And waiting for a refresh is something that they're not tolerant of, right? Like they need like up to the millisecond response times on stuff, and that's integrated as well. Again, using the same tools, the same backplane, the same data sets. So it's really easy for you to kind of start to mix and match these as we go along. As we see in our lakehouse, we are either bringing data in or using a shortcut from someone else. Shortcuts are great. Shortcuts are what we're going to be talking about a ton for the rest of our lives, because it means we're not creating our own data anymore, right? We're just bringing it from wherever it happens to be, right? We bring that shortcut in, we're making it available inside our lakehouse. We bring stuff into our pipelines, and our lakehouse then makes it available for our Power BI consumption, or for the lake warehouse for queries and additional compute on top of that. Very same architecture when we comes into play, but now we're using our data warehouse. So just a slightly different engine. We're talking about mounting the data in, something you don't really have to care all that much about, but it's what happens behind the scenes. But it gets loaded and brought into the data warehouse, and again, exposed to Power BI and exposed to data warehouse for queries. Data science, we kind of talked through this one. Same pattern, same path, same tooling. And your real-time streaming analytics. So no matter what's coming in from any source that you have, it all feeds into the exact same places where it's going into a Custo database. This one still has to be upgraded to the Delta Parquet, so it's still in Custo today. I would expect that that's going to change relatively soon. Custo is a very fast backend they use for real streaming, but Custo is already involved in Power BI. All right. The idea being that we're going to enable more people to use more of these advanced tools, and we're especially going to be very useful when it comes, or that's going to be much more usable for people in the business as we integrate more and more Copilot capabilities into Microsoft Fabric. Being able to use Copilot means being able to say, "Hey, I want to look. Can you please write a Python script that loads data from this file into this table, apply these transformations? Can you, something along those lines?" And Copilot writes all of those Python scripts for it. And I'll say that the Copilots, well, I haven't worked with it and I have not seen it, so I can't say at firsthand space, but in talking to people I've known for a long time and trusted, the Copilot capabilities in Python and JavaScript and like a lot of your hardcore engineering capabilities are incredibly good when it comes to generating scripts. In fact, there is a principal engineer at Microsoft I was talking to about it. I said, "Are you using it? How did it go?" He said, "Chris, I've been writing code for 25 years. I'm a principal engineer at Microsoft. I could probably count 50 people on the planet that are as good or better at me at scripting. So I know my coding. I mean, maybe there's more, but he was a little he was humbler than I'm saying. But he said, I know what I can deliver in a sprint, or I'm sorry, in a PI. So in a 3-month window, I know what I can deliver." He said he scoped out his 3-month window of work, and then he sat down with Copilot to see how fast he could deliver on that. And he said in 2 weeks, he delivered the entire 3 months of work, better, more resilient, and more capable than anything he's ever been able to deliver in the past, because Copilot generated all the deployment scripts, all the regression scripts, all the integration runtime scripts for every potential myriad of use cases that he had built into it. So he said, we're going to not just see products come out faster, we're going to see the products come out better than they've ever come out before, with more reliability, with more sustainability, with more bulletproofness around them. All right. And Fabric's going to bring that in and make that accessible to everyone inside their organization. Now, this is the one for Satya's meeting tomorrow. Make sure you join that 11 a.m. Yeah.
Maybe just a tiny bit of pushback on that. So I've dealt with senior developers, certainly not as experienced the person you're talking about, starting to use Copilot and found it incredibly helpful. I've also watched junior developers who are still learning, trying to use Copilot, and it doesn't, like in my observation, it kind of torpedoes their learning process. So that might change over time, but that's what I've seen so far.
So, well, I don't know. Are you talking about the preview Copilot?
I was thinking of GitHub Copilot.
Okay, something new. And I will say, to the one comment I forgot to leave off, and I apologize. He said, this is not going to eliminate our need to know and understand code, and our need for people who understand what scripts need to go in where and what they should look like and how they should function. A lot of that is still going to be very necessary. He said, the only reason I was able to move so fast is because I could look and evaluate all of the code that came out, and I could prompt it to make adjustments. Like, nope, you're missing this. And he said, does everyone know how to do that? Probably not. So will everyone see a 12x increase in productivity? Probably not. But it will become much better for people. And do check that out. I'm sure there'll also be like you said, a big detriment to new developers. If you don't, I mean, I know anytime I've attempted to learn a language, it's painful while you get through that first part of the S-curve of mastery. Is anyone familiar with the S-curve of mastery? All right, good, man. S-curve mastery is, it looks like an S, right? And anytime you learn something new at the first part, you suck. Just, you suck. You don't know it. It's all foreign to you. And then a light goes on and goes, I get it. And then you go through this like hyper growth knowledge and understanding until you reach like that plane of mastery, and then you own whatever it was you're learning, right? I have a feeling that tools like Copilot will never let anyone get to that moment of aha, right? They'll sit at suck, but it works, and they won't understand that. So that would be my fear too. So. What's that?
Really selling this.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be great. I'm very excited about it, but yeah. Now, the whole point of it, though, is we want people to be able to do more quicker, faster in pro code tooling so they could do stuff and they're not, I mean, who here has converted an Access database application to a production application? Anyone? Okay, a couple hands go up. How super easy was that? Anyone? Yeah, throw it away and start it again, because the code base in Access just isn't enterprise scale. Like, it was its own proprietary thing, right? Fabric is built on pro code tooling, pro code capabilities that allow you to just work with it, and then when it's out of your hands, the other thing with like Purview and seeing lineage and seeing utilization and usage, you can see when that diamond in your rough that you don't even know about starts to sparkle, and like that guy or gal or whoever, right, suddenly creates something that a third of your company's using. You can see it, you can go look at it, and if it's written well and right, you can lift that up and take that off that developer's back so they don't have to support that, get them onto that next great thing, and it's all in tooling and capabilities that your enterprise could support. Now, hopefully he's written with standards and all that stuff, there'll still be that challenge, that'll be there. All right.
Could you go back to the architecture diagrams a second? I had a comment on that. Maybe not this one, that's way too overwhelming. Go back to the beginning one. Sorry. Like this, for example, one thing I just wanted to emphasize here with these shortcuts in the Lakehouse and Power BI is we're reducing the number of times we have to move the data from one place to another. So if you've loaded your sales data into a sales workspace in one lake, and then the finance team also wants the sales data, the finance team can do a shortcut to the sales data in the sales place, and it looks like it's in the finance place too, but it's all in one place. That data is only loaded once, it's not being loaded twice in two different ways. And then in that lakehouse as well, Power BI is reading the data directly from the lakehouse. So the import mode where we spend 2 hours refreshing Power BI on a refresh schedule, that can change. So it's reading the data directly from the lakehouse. So you can edit the data in the Delta Lake format, and it will reflect in real time in Power BI, because Power BI is reading the data from the lakehouse directly. You're not moving the data from the lakehouse into a proprietary Power BI service. So overall, things just are a lot faster. You're only doing things once instead of, I'm going to load this here and I'm going to load it there and then move it over here. I just wanted to emphasize that. Sorry.
But you're spot on. And started to read the data mesh framework. I don't know if anyone's seen the book. It's not exciting, but an audio book, it's not bad. But one of the big concepts they talk about in data mesh is if you own that data, you own it as a product and you provide it with SLAs to your consumers. And so that finance team who's sharing that information over to sales, the finance team is responsible for refreshing it, keeping up to date. But when they do that inside their finance space, that's automatically updated whoever's consuming it. So sales has got it already updated, already applied, right? HR's got it. It's already updated, already applied. Finance only has to worry about it in that one space, right? Yeah.
So another question, and I think it depends on whether you're familiar with a couple of products as to whether you can answer it. How familiar are you with Fivetran and DBT?
I am familiar with DBT. I'm not familiar with Fivetran.
So you are familiar with DBT?
Yes.
I see how Microsoft is sort of going after the core capabilities of Snowflake and Databricks. I don't see anything in here that implies to me they're trying to give you the ability to do what DBT does. Am I missing that, or is that true?
That is 100% true. Okay. Although I know DBT has a Fabric integration that's already out, and it's very good. And are you working with it? Someone is, what's that?
I'm doing Snowflake.
You're doing Snowflake, okay, yeah. We have people that are testing it out, and it brings those capabilities into the Fabric space and brings that type of lineage and brings that tracking, so you can use DBT on top of Fabric. And Fabric is designed to be open source. So like here, where's the architecture diagram. If you are just using the one link, you could use any tools you want on top of it. If it uses Python, uses SQL, if it uses the XMLA endpoints, you could come in and access it and use it. So that means XMLA endpoints means if you're a Tableau shop and you would want to run Tableau on top of Fabric, no problem. You could do it through your XMLA. You could do it through SQL. You could do it through Python. If you're using Fivetran, I believe, I don't know enough. I'm not going to say about Fivetran. I don't know enough about it. But anything that integrates in and uses either of those toolings or connection points, you can use that inside of Fabric. So you could, like I said, solely use these bottom two layers and run and be free and frolic inside of the Fabric space.
So you're saying that DBT integrates with OneLake or with Synapse?
Both.
So DBT can build your automated SQL code that runs against either of those.
Yep. Yeah.
Question from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Just to confirm, the recommended book on data mesh frameworks is Data Mesh Delivering Data-Driven Value at Scale with a bird on the front?
That's the one. Yes, O'Reilly.
Awesome.
Yep, that's the one. Here, I can pull that up quick. I'm on chapter 8. I'll hopefully finish on the ride home tonight. Yeah, it's got a bird. Data mesh at scale. Well, there you go, YouTube. Yeah, excellent. Great. Any other questions? Are they running really late? Oh my gosh. I haven't even got to my demos yet.
It's my fault. I made you rewind.
It's all right. No. All right, let's talk about getting started with Fabric. There is a ton of resources out there to get started inside of Fabric. Do go out. They've got free licenses out there, free trials. If your organization hasn't turned them off, you can just go and use it. If not, you can spin up your own trial capacity and trial tenants, and you can get that up and running. In fact, I highly recommend it because, especially now when it's free, why the heck not? You'll get a free F64 capacity as part of your trial license and compute. Comparison-wise, that's the same as a P1 inside of the old Power BI skewing space. So like it's quite a bit. And if you want to know more about Fabric capacities, because it does run on capacities just like Power BI does, right? Or Power BI Premium, where you buy blocks of compute, and you have two options with blocks of compute. You either buy the hey, I spin it up and down, and those like Azure type prices where you could on demand use them. Those are out there. The new hey, I'm gonna buy a block of compute, and I'm just gonna that's what my company will use and draw from 24/7. Do whatever the heck they want with it. Those prices are not yet available. Not yet. But December 6th, here's another announcement. December 6th, Nate Finnegan, I think his last name is. I apologize, Nate. He is the product manager who owns the capacity and the capacity costing and the smoothing and all that stuff. He is going to be on my live stream on Wednesday, December 6th, and he's going to be running through that and showing us how all of that stuff works on the back end. Because there's some really pretty cool ways that Fabric manages spike processing, right? So when you buy this much, but you need this much for just like a minute, Fabric is able to just give that to you for a little while so you can take advantage of it, and then it'll smooth out the cost of that over the next 24 hours. And so if you truly use it for just like a minute, you won't notice it at all. If you use it more, you can notice it. But it's really, really pretty good. A lot of people are I saw someone load a crazy amount of data within a minute, and he had to go to logs to try and figure out, is it possibly loaded? We couldn't possibly have loaded all this data sub-minute, and it did, and it was because he hit us a spike in smoothing occurred, and it just loaded all the data for him. But go try it. Free, easy to use. There is a whole webinar series where they got questions, and Microsoft's product team's out there answering those things. So go there, do that. Come to this user group. I didn't put it in here, but we'll be here monthly talking about this stuff. The blog is out there. They've got announcements coming all the time on this. I mean, like I said, Microsoft reorganized all of their data teams at Microsoft into the Fabric space. I mean, there might be a handful that are outside of that for whatever, but it's everyone pretty much. And then there's a great getting started guide that's out there for people to take those first steps to go from I don't know what the heck I'm doing to, okay, I could do this. There's a whole bunch of those things there. They used to call them happy paths. I really loved happy path because who doesn't want to be on a happy path? But Microsoft's a big company. They weren't able to keep that cool name, so they call it Getting Started books. So, but frankly, they're really great. If you don't know what the heck a lakehouse is, you can follow along on this guide and follow the clicks, and you can actually stand up a lakehouse. You could stand up a data warehouse. You could You could stand up real-time streaming analytics or do some data science stuff. It's all super easy, and I'm going to show it to you in just a second here. A few do's and don'ts. Get in there, and these are coming. This is not Microsoft. That's coming from us at Baker Tilly. Experiment with the stuff. Try it out until you've tested and you know it. I mean, trust but verify, right? Don't run mission critical stuff on it. Like, hey, this is the cool, latest, greatest thing. Don't just cut over to that until you've tested it, right? Like, don't, if you're running a factory, don't switch your factory onto Fabric till you know it runs and works right. You know, it should be said, you know, should go without saying, but test it, make sure it runs, make sure it handles the loads, make sure when it breaks, you know how to fix it, just like anything, right? Understand how reliable it is, right? Now, I wrote these like right before Fabric went to public preview, and I was seeing like, hey, Fabric is up and my processes run 92% of the time. I was very happy. Fabric's been out for 5-6 months, and I think I saw my last failure in the Fabric space like 3 or 4 months ago. So, I mean, I'm now at way above 99.999% of uptime. So I've got my 5 nines of availability right now. But what I have is not what you're going to have. Test it out. Make sure it works for you, right? And then allow people in your company to run and experiment with it. Try it as well. But make sure that they understand what to do it and do it in a way that you control the chaos, right? There's always going to be some chaos. It's how do we embrace it? All right. Now, if you're interested, we do have a Microsoft Fabric Jumpstart lead effort that we do at Baker Tilly, where we sit down with you and we kind of like run through all this stuff, get you set up, help you configure this stuff. It's a thing we started to do with companies. It works out quite well. We also have a Jumpstart program to like just get you up and building. We're going to take some of the stuff that we do with our customers, and we're going to actually go through it today. So this is the data engineering path. We're going to get you up and running, and that's what we got today that we're going to do. So we're going to be doing the lakehouse architecture. Now, part of the solution is just the structured data flowing in through some pipelines, loading in the lakehouse, and becoming available inside of Power BI. This data is available for you. You can go download that out on the link that I shared earlier on my website or on Git. All the data is out there. Another thing. Oh, we'll come back to that in a second. All right. Now, let's go over to Microsoft Fabric, okay? Well, before I kick off, any questions? No. Good. Apologize for we're running later than we would normal. Hopefully, if you have to go, you have to go, and I understand, but we're going to dive into it. So this is Microsoft Fabric, app.fabric.microsoft.com. This will bring you into the Fabric experience. If you're used to working in Power BI, it's going to look very similar to you. In fact, all I have to do is click on Power BI, and I'm in Power BI. Go back. I can click on Data Factory. I'm putting on the hat of a Data Factory engineer, like I want to do orchestration, right? You know, I could also put I could put on my Power BI hat. I want to write reports, or I want to do Data Activator. We haven't talked much about Data Activator. Data Activator, like honestly, I think it's the unsung hero inside of the Fabric space because it allows you to actually do something when something happens with data, right? Like, okay, data comes in, and you could anyone inside your business can define rules of what actions happen from that streaming data. Reflex allows them to reflexively work from that, right? Or I could put on my data engineering hat, and this is the hat that we're going to be working from. And when I come in and I put on my data engineering hat, just like Power BI, it's going to give me the most common activities that as a data engineer I want to do, right? So first thing, hey, do I create a lakehouse? Do I create a notebook? How about create a Spark job, right? Or you try to build a data pipeline. Maybe you want to import a notebook, right? Any of that stuff. All this is right here. And this is where, I know. All right, this is where you have to also first be in a Fabric workspace. So I'm going to create a workspace to get up and running because my workspace is not a Fabric workspace. So just like in Power BI, Think of workspaces in the Fabric world and going forward as these are your servers. These are your isolated like blocks of compute that you're going to be working with. Okay. Now that workspace, that server might be part of a larger virtual server, but think of that as your server. Okay. So I'm going to say I want a new workspace. I'm going to call this Madison Lakehouse. Okay, and I'm going to choose what domain is this part of. So I could say what domain is this data going to belong to? Is this going to be part of my sales? Is this going to be part of my IT? Where does this go? In this case, I'm going to define it inside my IT domain. And then under my advanced, I'm going to go in and I could define who the owners or contact lists are. I'm going to make sure it's part of my trial. So it's going to be used my Fabric capacity. I'm going to click on apply. Microsoft's going to spin up that workspace just like in Power BI, but now I'm currently wearing my data engineering hat. So when I go in and I say new, I'm going to see all of the things that I, as a data engineer, would most likely expect to see. Now, maybe it's not everything. If I wanted to do something more, oh, come on now. Why is oh, it's right there. Go away. There's an all button, more options. There we go, more options. Oh, not all, more options. New thing. I have access to all the capabilities inside of Fabric. So I just put on a hat to like focus the work that I'm going to be doing, right? So just make that easier. So I am going to be going into my lakehouse and I'm going to be creating a lakehouse, okay? First thing, I will have gone out to my Git repo, my repositories, my Fabric Adventure Works Lakehouse. I'm going to download all of these items, okay? I'm not going to download it now because I've already downloaded. So once I've got those downloaded, I'm going to go in. I'm going to say, okay, I want to create a lakehouse. And for the purposes of this demo, you need to name it AdventureWorks LH. Let's say create. And yay, I've now created my lakehouse. I mean, there's no data in it, so it's not all that exciting, but hang on, we'll get that in there. Yes?
Is there, so there's 68 trials for free. Is there going to be an equivalent to like SQL Server Developer where you have like a tiny capacity that you can use as a person to try stuff without having to spend a lot of money?
Yes, the capacities go all the way down to an F2. An F2 is sub $200 a month, and it's designed to be that individual or small team development or even workspace. I know my partner on Fridays, Fabric Fridays, he has a client that is running their warehouse on an F2 because they spin it up. He loads their data within, it's not a big place, right? He loads it within 30 minutes on an F2, puts it into Delta files. And while he was using the Direct Lake against it, he realized he could spin it. He could import it because it was very small into Power BI desktop and then spin down his F2. And so he was running their data warehouse on an F2, running that sub $200 a month resource for less than an hour a day. So, I mean, I don't know what 1/24 of, I think it's $170, but $8 to $13 a month, right? That's not a bad like spend to get access to all of these capabilities, right? Now, let me launch my files here. I'm going to quick show you. This is the OneLake companion install. Today you have to install, you can just Google OneLake plugin and you can start to go through and you can see all your OneLake files out here. This is going to be integrated just like OneDrive is integrated into your solutions. But just like a file folder, right? You have access and you can run the stuff. So you can do stuff that it's in the cloud. You can run it locally. You can do your development locally if you need to. Then you can move it out into the cloud for your run and compute and stuff. So, but I have brought my files into my AdventureWorks space. These are just CSV files. I dumped all the data out of my AdventureWorks server into the CSV files. So I want this to be in my OneLink. So I'm going to go to my files. And I'm going to say, you know what? I could upload. In fact, yeah, I'm going to do upload folder. Now, I'm a big proponent of inside of like your files, have a folder for each source. Kind of already do, so I'm cheating a little bit there, but you can create a folder at that point to help you manage that. I'm going to select my AdventureWorks. I'm going to click upload. Now let's take a look at how long this is going to take. 24 files you want to load. I say yes. All right, upload. There we go. And boom, these are all uploaded. Now, all of these files now become available for us inside of our like somewhat of our bronze layer. This is just available inside of our file folders inside of here. Now I can right click on this and I could say choose to load to tables and new table. Could choose to go down that path and all the data files will load in and you'll be good to go. Some notes on that. For those of you who aren't familiar with working with Delta or Parquet files, file names have to be very specific for it to go in natively in there. You can do some controls around that to make that run and give you more control over what those file types are. So I'm going to take a pause here. I'm going to go back to my my lakehouse or my workspace I created. And I'm going to take a note of a few things that are automatically created when I spun up my lakehouse. Now you're with me. You saw me. I created a lakehouse. I loaded some files. I have 3 things that were automatically created along with that lakehouse. Number 1, the lakehouse. Yay, that's what I wanted, right? But 2, I've got a SQL Analytics endpoint. This is my SQL Server connection string. Connect to it, Management Studio, connect to it with whatever tooling you want so that you can then query and access the data that's inside your data lake. It's automatically created and available for you. I also have my semantic model. Now, semantic model is a brand new name inside of Power BI for the data set or for the tabular model. They're just calling it what it's always been since, I think the earliest reference I've seen from it is Kimball chapter 14 in 92 or something like that. So like semantic model is the name it's always been. So they're like, okay, we're not selling a different product anymore. We'll call it the semantic model like it's always been. So all of these are automatically created for me. I didn't have to do anything, right? But I want to do something more. I want to import a notebook because inside of my notebooks, I can go in and I can actually go and control my uploads. Oh crap, where the heck did I put that? Nope. Notebooks. Here's my load AdventureWorks notebook. And this is just a Python notebook. So any notebooks that you're running any place, if you're using, anyone know what it's like ISO compliant Python, blah, blah, blah. This will run and operate. So if you're running pure Python, this works as it is. So I imported my notebook and I can go in, I can open my notebook. Now, this is your classic notebook experience for loading data. And if you're not familiar with Python notebooks, like I'm not familiar with Python notebooks, so you can't grill me on this stuff. That's not my that's not my thing. I had to get someone to help me write all this code, but it is relatively simple to do once you get in, and I just have not personally done this. A few things. First, when you connect to a notebook, I'm glad I remember this, you have to make sure that you connect to a lakehouse. It's always going to be, some reason it's always going to attach back to, or it's going to remember the ID of the one you were connected to, but I don't know. But you attach it to your lakehouse. So I attach it to the AdventureWorks lakehouse I just created. Click on Add. And now I'll have my, come on now, where'd it go? There, okay, there we go. Okay, so I've connected to my lakehouse. I'm ready to go. Now I have a few options. I can run a cell to do the load. So I can just go ahead and say run this cell. And now my, yeah, okay, whatever. So that started up in 4 seconds. It's running the load of my data. And, oh, what happened here?
There's a warning on the left that says it's using the previous default lakehouse.
I don't want to use the previous lakehouse.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
Oh. Maybe that was the issue. What? Oh, of course, always the demo gods. You've had lakehouse to the notebook, but your running session is not such a thing. Yeah. Oh. You have to have it pinned. God bless him, Alden. All right.
I'll make sure you click on the pin. I see that in the comments that I've already.
Yeah. Make sure it shows the pin. Ah, yes. All right. Now, there we go. Okay. Success. Oh, I do have an error program that I was going to show you troubleshooting, but now we'll get to show troubleshooting twice. So, yay. So I've loaded one notebook, so one file. So great. But now I could, I don't want to necessarily run through all of these frames because I'm loading all of these. I could say, you know what, run this cell and all below. And I could say, go ahead. And it's just going to kick off the, spin up the cluster. It's going to execute on them and it's going to load. Now, who here has spun up clusters and run notebooks in the past? What's roughly the time it takes to spin up a cluster and run a notebook? Like a good, like, hey, I'm really happy with this time and regular time. And then, yeah, sometimes it takes that long.
Well, in Snowflake, it usually takes me like 2 seconds. It's nice.
Okay.
When I used Databricks way back when, it took like 5 minutes.
Yeah. So they're down to like a 2-3 minute thing. They've gotten better, right? The classic spin up time was like 5 minutes. If you had a lot going on and you were trying to like use like, it could be upwards. It could be more. Fabric has got their spin up session time into like the seconds area. Frankly, I don't know how they're cheating this. Like there's got to be some cheat that occurs there. How does it in seconds? But it's in seconds. Oh, look. And there's the error I planned for. So I planned for that one. Okay, so this one, I've got a diagnostics on it. I could go in and see, oh no, what happened? Well, the reality is I deleted that file, so we're just not going to run that one anymore. So we're going to run this one and below. Maybe I deleted this one too. Oh, that one I deleted too. These are supposed to be demos, me showing you how to fix it, but we fix it on top. So we're just going to quickly skip through those and run through the rest of my notebooks. All of these are going to run and do their imports in. And then is generally speaking a sub-minute thing to run through all of these now. But it's still running. Yeah. Interesting. Those are new warning layers. Did I run it all? It is running, right? Oh.
I have noticed that it might be a little bit slower today.
Oh, really? Are people? All right. All right. So maybe. But the good news is if I expand my tables here, look at that. Anyone can see that? It's grayed out right now. It's Copilot. There's something being announced tomorrow. Very excited to have that. Okay, all right, everything's done and it's run. All right, as I expand and look at my tables, are you not opening? All right, let me go back into my lakehouse and I see my tables. I've got all of the tables that I've loaded are all available here. I can now go in and I can run queries against these tables. I can just click on it and take a look at the data inside there. Now, okay, hey, this is all well and good, but oh my gosh, why are you taking so long? But let's say I'm done with my lakehouse. Like, okay, I've done my notebooks. I'm done working in my lakehouse space. Now I want to go into my SQL Analytics endpoint. I just click on my Analytics endpoint, and boom, just like that, all of my tables start to come together, and I can now start to write queries of the data that's inside my notebook. So I still have the same functionality that I've always had, like right click, select top 1,000 or select top 100. I can run queries. I could create sort procedure, or not sort procedures, but I could create views that sit on top of my data. I could do all of those things. But once I do, I can then say, okay, hey, this is my query. I like this one. I want to share this one to my team. I can then just go to my here and I could say, you know what, move this over to my shared queries. Now, move to my shared. Oh, why didn't you move? What's that?
Refresh at the top left.
Move to shared queries. Oh my gosh. Where, top left?
Yeah, the bio.
Oh, there thing. Okay, new button. Yay. Why did it move? No, it moves. I could. It'll move. Well, that'll be done. But that's not all. Oops, I want to go back into that. So inside my endpoint, or my SQL endpoint, I also have my semantic model. So a semantic model is automatically created as part of my lakehouse creation. So this is your classical Power BI data set that automatically gets created so I can automatically start building reports off of this. So I'm ready to start writing a report off this. Now, in this case, I've got to go through and I've got to create some keys on here. So I've got to go through and do my joins. I would expect that those joins are going to start to get better in auto detecting and how they should connect. As long as you have like currency key going to currency key, you're going to start to see those connecting, just like they do in Power BI. But once I've done, I can go and I could say, hey, I want to create a new query, which you just saw, or I can go ahead and say, I want to create a new report. And I'm just going right into your classical Power BI report building experience. So I can work and I can build out a Power BI report on top of my model. I can go in here, I can build out measures, I can do all of that good stuff. Or if I don't, I don't want to write and manage my queries here. I want to go to Management Studio. I like going to Management Studio to do all my work. I'm accustomed to that. Or I'm in Excel. I'm an Excel head, and I just want to write a query in Excel for some reason. I can just go grab this SQL connection string that's automatically created, and I can use this to connect from any tool that can connect to SQL Server out into my lakehouse, and I can write a query. Better, let's do one like this. If I say, where's my customer? Come on. Dim customer, right click, select top 100 rows. If I like this, if this is the data I'm interested in, I could click on download Excel file. and it's going to open this query inside of Excel connected back to this lakehouse. So now I have an Excel file that's completely integrated with my OneLake. So if I'm using this query for production auditing or for reconciliation by your auditors, or they've built out some macros and they want to continue to run those macros, I can now use that Excel file. Where did it go? Oh, did it pop up and I wasn't looking?
It had an error.
Oh,
I said you had to select the select statement that you wanted to download.
did. Really? Oh, my demo gods are not with me today. It'll pop up and it'll just open right up and you'll have access to it. And the Excel file will be connected to it. So as you update your lakehouse, the Excel file gets updated as well. Okay? Yes.
Is there any kind of data statistics that go along with those results? Kind of like in Power Query, like kind of give you the stats on like how unique a column is, like how many values are on cardinal, things like that.
Yes, but I don't remember where.
Yeah, no worries. That would be really nice, like nice to have.
Yeah, there's no, that's a great question. I just saw Mim going through and exploring that and showing that in a blog post. I don't remember how he did that. So, but end to end, this is a data lakehouse generated off of scripts. No magic, no fuss, no muss. Easily done, easily replicatable. So if you have a whole bunch of files that you need to do some analysis on, you can spin up a lakehouse. You can get that analysis in place, and you're good to go. All right. Any questions? No? All right. Well, I'm going to thank everyone online. We have one more thing for the in-person people. So just going to thank everyone online. Thank you guys very much. I'm going to Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.